Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this virtual program, a partnership between the Lyman Allyn Art Museum and the Rose Art Museum at Brandeis University. We thank you all so much for joining us this evening. My name is Allyn Donovan, and I'm the Director of Learning and Engagement at the Lyman Allyn Art Museum. This program is part of our series connected to Barkley L. Hendricks in London that is on view at the Lyman Allyn this summer through September 3rd. And we hope you all have a chance to see it if you haven't already. For those of us joining from the Rose Art Museum community, the Lyman Allyn is just about 2 hours away from the greater Boston area. So we hope we could make us part of your summer travels. I'm delighted to introduce our two speakers tonight, Drs. Gannit Ankori and Tanya Pohrt. Gannit Ankori is the Henry and Lois Foster Director and Chief Curator of the Rose Art Museum and Professor of Fine Arts and Women's Gender and Sexuality Studies at Brandeis University. In 2022, Dr. Ankori curated My Mechanical Sketchbook, Barkley L. Hendricks and Photography with Dr. Allyn. The show presented Hendricks' monumental paintings alongside his never-before-shown photographs, works on paper, and Polaroids. The show offered a deeper understanding of the artist's multi-model practice and his ways of seeing and being in the world. Tanya Pohrt is the Curator of Art at the Lyman Allyn Art Museum and has done a number of exhibitions, including Barkley L. Hendricks in New London, which considers the work of this influential artist from a regional standpoint, exploring the role of place, community, and teaching in Hendricks's career. Dr. Ankori will present images from the Roses exhibition, and then Dr. Pohrt will present some additional works from the Lyman Allyn show. We look forward to this lively conversation about Hendricks's work and his legacy in New London and beyond. And one final note, I want everyone to know that there is closed captioning available at the bottom of your screen. Thank you so much.
So thank you, everyone. I am going to put together the PowerPoint and turn my camera off so you see the full screen. And I want to thank Allyn for that wonderful introduction. Thank to the teams of both museums for supporting the program, Max for his help with the technology, and of course, thank you all for coming this evening. It is an absolute pleasure to share some images and thoughts about the Rose Art Museum's exhibition, My Mechanical Sketchbook by Barkley L. Hendricks and Photography. And I just on a personal note, it was truly an honor to have the opportunity on behalf of the Rose to work closely with Barkley's wife, Susan, and the Jack Shaman Gallery in New York, specifically also with Elizabeth there, to, and you know, I'm just so thankful that they allowed us to be the first venue to show this amazing body of work. But to set the mood, I thought that I would share with you a 1.5-minute clip that one of our student interns last year put together, inspired by the exhibition. His name is Vicente Kawala, and this is his take on what was seen. All right. Since you can't see the show, at least you can move around virtually. So Barkley Hendricks, as everyone knows, was a virtuoso painter. And here's some of the works that we had the pleasure of living with for 5.5 months. He was also a brilliant photographer, a fashion icon, a collector of hats and shoes, a lover of music, poetry, and basketball. Perhaps best known for his, as a portrait painter, Hendricks's monumental portraits painted on linen and oil and acrylic seem to leap off flat canvases, imprinting indelible impressions of their subjects, very distinct personalities, flamboyant self-fashioning, and performative pizzazz. But after the artist's death on April 18th, 2017, a treasure trove of never before seen works on paper, photographs, Polaroids, and film negatives was uncovered in the artist's New London, Connecticut home and studio. And everything I'm showing you, the works on paper, the photographs, were all part of the exhibition at the Rose. Now, a selection from these new materials was actually the focus of the exhibition. And again, I am ever so grateful to the estate, to Susan, to Jack Shainman for allowing us to show it. So the fact that Hendricks had always been an avid photographer is well known. But this exhibition presented Hendricks' photographs as autonomous artworks, as models for paintings. And this is one of my favorites. The most famous painting, or one of the famous paintings, Icon for My Man Superman, was actually based on this carefully staged photographic self-portrait where, the artist himself explained, and I quote, "When Bobby Seale said Superman never saved any Black folks, and I found a cheap Superman t-shirt, ta-da, another self-portrait." But as in other self-portraits in this show, the contrast, it seems like a humorous thing, but there's so many layers of meaning. The contrast between the artist's exposed penis and covered eye suggests the simultaneously hypervisibility and hypersexualization and the invisibility in Black men in our society. Also, as scholars and curators, the photographs were really, really amazing, and they helped us understand Hendricks's world and his vision. The camera helped Hendricks capture the sights and insights he gleaned by immersing himself within the world. He said, "I'm fast, but not as fast as a camera." And the photos offer us insights into his ways of seeing. Here, for example, his studio, we see his music, his self-portraits on the wall, his intellectual and cultural milieu, the reflections of the studio windows in his sunglasses. And this is a pairing that we had. This portrait, incredible self-portrait, where you see the windows both of the studio and reflected in the sunglass. The Tondo format reminded us of the aperture of the camera, and they're full of contradictions. For example, again, we see him covered by the hat. There is no access to his eyes because of the sunglasses, but he is vulnerable and naked with a palette-shaped necklace and lips, sensual lips here. So the sensuality and the openness of this broad grin compared with covering and protecting his interiority. There was something that we really, really liked here was also the reflections Like we have all these circles and reflections that remind us of the way that we see through the camera's lens and the eye, but also this irony, because the eyes are supposed to be windows to the soul. Here, you do not see the eyes, but you do see other windows. So every single work seemed to us to be layered, full of meaning, humor, seriousness, social, personal meaning. Here's another one. Such a great person. So the exhibition was divided into 5 overlapping sections. The first section, the eye and the lens, reflections of self. We used Barkley's quote, "I was not fascinated by myself as much as Rembrandt or depressed to the extent of Van Gogh. However, at times, I could not resist myself as subject." And for us, and I'm going to start with this work that I'm really happy to say is in the Rose collection, a really amazing self-portrait. And I want to start in 1966. Barkley Hendricks finished school and was awarded a traveling scholarship from the Pennsylvania Academy of the Fine Arts. His travels took him to the major museums and art sites of Europe, where he was very strongly impacted by portrait paintings that he saw. But he was also struck by the lack of representation of Black subjects. This absence, this refusal to represent, reminded us of Ralph Ellison's analysis of Black invisibility in US society in his 1952 book, The Invisible Man. So Hendricks's paintings and photographs address Black invisibility by producing vibrant and varied pantheon of monumental Black subjects endowed with remarkable dignity, beauty, and style. A visual mode of self-empowerment, these paintings and photographs unequivocally assert that Black is beautiful. And among these many, many portraits are dozens of mesmerizing self-portraits. And it was interesting for us to see that Hendricks uses the traditional tropes of self-portraiture to identify himself. He's a painter. We see the tools of his trade, the brushes and paints in the foreground. He's a photographer, and he lifts his camera into a position of prominence, sort of transforming this mechanical lens into a third eye. And of course, the books and records in the background evoke the artist's musical and intellectual predilections. Finally, his black hat, contrasting white shirt, ringed fingers, and self-referential gesture call attention to Hendricks as an elegant and noteworthy personality, and affinities with art historical models, like this is a detail from Velázquez's Las Meninas, and a lot of these references to other portraits and European European museums that he saw come to mind. For example, this photograph captures the artist's reflection in a shiny round surface of a hubcap, but it conjures up Van Eyck's Arnold Finney wedding portrait and Parmigianino's self-portrait in a convex mirror, among other works from earlier eras and other times and other geographical locations. Now, I want you to see that circles dominate the composition, linking the eye, the camera lens, the mirror, and bringing Hendricks's heightened sense of vision into focus. And this, many of the works that were on view also do not merely counter the invisibility of Black folks, they also challenge the hypervisibility of Black people in the public imagination in the States, ever heightened by white supremacy, state surveillance, and policing. And the works confront the intertwined fear and hypersexualization of Black bodies, especially the Black male body. This incredible photograph that I believe is also on view now at the Lyman Allyn, it was taken in Hendricks' studio, and we see a smiling Hendricks. So this is all from 1977. He's smiling, casually standing between two contrasting life-size self-portraits, brilliantly endowed to the left, presents the naked artist against a flat background, Black background. On the right, we see Slick, and you can see the actual oil paintings. Slick you see him attired very elegantly in a white suit against a white background. And the two titles from 1970 of these two paintings from 77 also reflect his self-deprecating humor. The term brilliantly endowed was used by art critic Hilton Kramer in the New York Times Review to describe Hendricks's talents as a painter, saying he's brilliantly endowed, but it also evoked notions of Black male bodies and their assumed sexual prowess. He paints himself naked, his left hand gesturing and kind of accentuating his sexuality. The title Slick was likewise inspired by a playful remark by the artist's sister, who told him, "You think you're so slick, just wait, one day a woman is going to straighten you out." Both portraits embody the cool West African and African-American term that emphasizes balance and calm. In the two portraits, Hendricks has an angled toothpick in his mouth, sunglasses, and a necklace with a leg-shaped amulet around his neck. So they relate to each other, but are quite distinct from each other. And the photographic self-portrait relates to the paintings, but exposes an alternative third version of the artist's identity. His T-shirt connects him to Simon Gratz High School in Philadelphia, where he graduated in 1963 and later taught classes. The contrapposto pose mirrors his way of standing in the painting and in the two paintings, and certain accessories are repeated. Everyone sees the socks here and other elements. The installation, and this is something that I want to show you, when we installed the photograph, we kind of mimicked, we installed two other self-portraits that kind of echo the naked and the dressed and the elegant on either side. So working with the paintings and the photographs was an honor, to kind of get to know Hendricks and his way of seeing the world and composing his art very, very deeply, very, very deeply. So another section, we gave the title My People, and we used Langston Hughes quotes and poetry because they were among Barkley Hendricks' favorite. So the night is beautiful, so the faces of my people. The stars are beautiful, so the eyes of my people. Beautiful also is the sun. Beautiful also are the souls of my people. And throughout his life, Hendricks engaged in what he called global looking seeing, both at home and especially in New London, in his hometown, in his home state, and in the United States, but also abroad throughout the African diaspora and in Africa. He photographed people whom he found visually compelling, interesting, and special. His photographs, Polaroids, and paintings lovingly recorded the people who were part of his life, many of whom belonged to overlooked communities from Africa and the African diaspora. This Nigerian brother, as he called him, from 78, contrasts with some of Hendricks's paintings in which he offsets subjects with solid, often brightly colored backgrounds. This photograph shows a young man as a brightly colored spot within a somber landscape. Although surrounded by mud puddles, debris, gray buildings, etc., this individual shows off his bright and impeccably styled outfit with cap and pride. With one arm propped on his hip, this Nigerian man exudes a confidence that weaves throughout Hendricks's photographs of people in Africa, the United States, Jamaica, and other points along the artist's effort to chronicle facets of global Blackness. And here we have one of a really, really fantastic photograph of Vendetta. Did I skip one? Okay, I meant to include another one, but Hendricks had an astute talent for capturing the ways people chose to fashion and present themselves to a world that often denied their humanity. And the photographs convey a confidence, defiance, pride, beauty, and joy of people taking pleasure in being seen and desired. Vendetta, in lotus position, her body unfolds almost like a flower framed by a low plush chair, and the carefully composed angles and diagonals delineate a star-like form. So the compositions are just astounding. It's not just what he's photographing, it's also how he composes his photographs. The lotus position hints at the use of yoga by Black women in the 1970s. And there was even an article in 1975 in Ebony magazine titled Yoga, Something for Everyone by Stanley Williford. And he traced a long history of Black women practicing yoga as a form of meditation and self-care. And we know that even African-American activists like Angela Davis and Rosa Parks practice yoga as a means of preparing themselves for a more effective struggle. So Vendetta radiates sensuality and self-sufficiency. We see a frank, shadowed gaze, meticulously braided hair, a slight smile that indicates her own ways of presenting herself to the world. So Hendricks focused on his subject's distinct sartorial flair and unique attitude, emphasizing personhood and individuality, highlighting Blackness as a beautiful spectrum rather than a monolith. So another section that we titled Fashion and Desire. And we explored how Hendricks's work dismantles gendered conventions of fashion and style and expanded notions of masculinity, femininity, and desire. Very much attentive to the sartorial choices of his subject, as well as his own, Hendricks presents unbridled freedom and desire. And there's a lot of emphasis on shoes, a lot of sensuality. Again, the cropping and the color scheme and the way the photographs are just impeccable compositions and works of art is something that we reveled in, was mesmerizing to us when we had the works on view. I want to show you one more that absolutely amazing in terms of just how seductive and how you can't take your eyes off of it. And every time you look at it, you see new things. I also want to quote what Hendricks said in 1976. He said, "My work provides me with total freedom. In turn, it demands total honesty. So long as one can remain honest with himself and his work, we'll have the freedom for the exploration and satisfaction of our foremost feelings and desires." So, let me move on. This is Sunset shoes, beautiful shoes that, Hendricks also collected shoes. But this work in particular, I thought was very interesting because underneath all these shoes, it says slave quarters here. And I discussed this work with one of Barkley's close friends, Ari Montfort, who told me, yes, there is a lot of joy, a lot of pizzazz, a lot of stylishness in Black culture in the United States. But if you scrape the surface, if you dig underneath, there's always also some trauma. And that's the way he interpreted this Polaroid. So again, a Polaroid, something very small in size, but extremely powerful in meaning, and that we have here. And style, I think this is also a photograph that is one of our favorites, and that will be discussed later. But these women who take up space and are proud of who they are and move and dress and dance a certain way, that attracted Barkley Hendricks and his camera. Just incredible people. So Hendricks was drawn to everything that had to do with the senses: music, dance, visual arts. And the section that was called style and desire just was part and morphed into or kind of bled into the boombox and television section. We had this incredible painting called part of the dance hall series, visualizing unbridled sensual pleasure related to music, dance, desire. And the artist explained that the series was inspired by his, quote, Jamaican friends who party hardy, end of quote. The Black hairstyles, the cornrows, afros, elaborate braids, dreadlocks, all of them very carefully documented in paintings and photographs by Hendricks, may be related to, certainly related to emblems of pride and identity, but we related them to James Baldwin's metaphor, saying that African Americans must reclaim their crowns. So looking at his hats, looking at it, the hairstyles as kind of crowns that showing pride of identity. And we see that this sensuality was very much part of both his painting and his photography and his works on paper. So endowed with a heightened desire to see and to hear, Hendricks was very much aware of the mechanical tools that could amplify the senses, as well as record and retrieve audiovisual information. Just as the camera lens enhanced his capacity to see and record visual data, the television set and the boombox delivered sights and sounds. So the photographs with the boombox also talking about not just the style, look at the how they're standing. Look at the pride. Look at the color coordination, the whites and the reds. But also the fact that these figures occupy space, make noise, and this is an amplification of their culture. You notice oftentimes he has like single figures or duos or trios, and we use those terms because they echoed the musical language that Hendricks was well-versed in. And then the television as something, a mechanical way of retrieving visual data. Here you see the high heel shoes that relate to other sections. And for us at Brandeis, having Anita Hill, who was televised, you know, the Clarence Thomas hearings of 1991 made Anita Hill a household name. She asserted herself and still asserts herself as a brave, poised Black woman, an icon of integrity who courageously speaks truth to power. So not only interested in representation of Black individuals and other individuals in museums, in paintings, but also in popular culture. So we had this work with Anita Hill. We had one with Sammy Davis Jr. And I think you'll see some others from at the Lyman Allyn. Some of the television sets were a way to reach abstraction. Here you have something that reminds us of the yin yang, a pathway to abstraction. And here, the screen and experimentations with colors and balance. Really, really beautiful. The Polaroid with the beautiful, like a color test that becomes a composition. And this is analogous to what he did with his basketball works, where we see here that he morphs the basketball imagery into abstract work. So there's often an abstract element in addition to the figurative element, always formal considerations that are quite remarkable. So our final section of the show was called I Too Sing America, also based on the Langston Hughes poem. And we quoted just a section, but had the whole thing available. I too sing America, I am the darker brother. They'll see how beautiful I am and be ashamed. I too am America. So the beautiful, beautiful folks that Hendricks documented with photographs and paintings were surrounded this section, so that what we saw in this section, they actually showed how beautiful the darker brother is and caused shame to anyone who might be racist. So, you know, Hendricks persistently refused to be confined to narrow definitions or categories. So being a Black figurative painter who often portrayed members of Black communities resulted in his being labeled, often dismissively, as a political artist. And he really did not like that title. He found it very limiting. But we can say that art making in and of itself may be viewed as an act of resistance, and Black representation and self-representation that strive to combat racist stereotypes while elevating notions of Black agency and power may also be seen as a form of activism. And yet, Hendricks himself insisted that he painted the world around him as he saw it and experienced it. And alongside the beauty, the performative flair, the fashionable bravado, he also knew that racism, violence, and injustice prevailed in the United States. So images that reflect harsh realities span Hendricks's entire oeuvre. And in this section, we placed a starless American flag from 1967-68. And remember the many, many assassinations of Black leaders at this time. The other works that we had were photographs from the 1980s through the 1990s that reflect the ubiquity of the Confederate flag. And a very large photograph documenting Hendricks's 1982 encounter with white supremacists at a Ku Klux Klan rally in Connecticut. And that photograph is one that we added to our show because we were told about it by Ari Montfort, who remembered that after Hendricks passed away, he helped Susan, his widow, clear the garage, and they found this photograph of the rally where Ari Montfort actually attended together with Barkley, pretending to be photographers. And it was really dangerous and quite traumatic for both of them. But this too was in the show. So not just the beautiful images of global Blackness, but also racism and white supremacism. And we included the very last, or one of the last of paintings that Barkley created before his death, a year before his death. So we have a hooded Black youth in the crosshairs of a rifle, you know, that cross. The round canvas of this work presents not just the crosshairs of a rifle, but they're centered on the head of the Black youth. His hands are raised in the air. His gray hoodie is around and kind of places a shadow over his face. Now, a cropped haloed image appears upon the sweatshirt, and the artist called him, and I quote, a Black Christ figure. The artist further explained the work, and this is something you can't see around the canvas. He wrote, and I quote, around the canvas there is the 50 states stenciled on, and it represents the states where Black men have been shot. And so the names of the 50 states, hence in the crosshairs of the states. He asked his cousin from Texas to send him a large Confederate flag, and that was very easy to do. So related to the surge in the killing of Black men and women and children, but especially young men. And this reminded many of us of Trayvon Martin and the hoodie and the discussions that were had in this country. The rise in the United States of white supremacist rhetoric and actions. The painting is a visual articulation of many of the forces that propelled the Black Lives Matter movement forward. So Hendricks's art insists on exposing and giving voice to these difficult truths. Here you see how this wall with the difficult material is embraced and surrounded by the others. But showing these themes we thought was an existential act of survival and resistance in a way, a continuation of the idea of the camera that documents the world around him, the world that he is part of, the world that he engages with. But he always continued to portray Black people as a beautiful spectrum and as playful, stylish, desirable, defiant, and very, very diverse individuals. I really liked the way that we had a chance, the wall with the Ku Klux Klan actually faced this wall, and there was a window where you could see it, showing Hendricks confronting the white supremacists, but also recalling they will see how beautiful we are and be ashamed, showing these amazingly beautiful individuals confronting that kind of racism. So I want to end with half a second of Barkley's own voice.
My camera I call my Mechanical Sketchbook. It allows me to get information, and I'm fast, but I'm not as fast as the camera.
So it was an incredible exhibition to work on, and I'm sorry you missed it, but there is a fully illustrated catalog at the Rose. Anyone who wants it can write to us and we can make it available. It really captures the ambiance of the exhibition. And again, showing the photographs in dialogue with other modes of expression really enlivened and brought Barkley Hendricks to life for us. And one of the greatest. Certainly one of the greatest. So thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Gannit. That was really an amazing kind of virtual tour through the highlights and a lot of wonderful sort of details and explanation about how you organize this exhibition and you know, the ways, your goals, and sort of the ways in which you grouped and conceived many of the key ideas in the story of my Mechanical Sketchbook. And I think it was great, you know, to have a good chunk of time to look at that because, as you point out, you know, that exhibition is gone. And so there's less time now, but I'm going to, in a moment, sort of give a quick little overview of some of the work that's on view now at the Lyman Allyn in our exhibition, Barkley L. Hendricks in New London. And I do hope that some folks in the audience who haven't seen this exhibition will be able to come and visit and see these works of art that will be on view through September 3rd of this year. So, and I think it's so interesting. I loved attending and sort of seeing your installation. And we have borrowed a few of the same works of art, the same photographs in our exhibition. And it's so interesting to kind of think of the way you've framed some of the stories and the sort of threads that run through, you know, pictures, works of art that are exhibited alongside one another, and how we have kind of made some different decisions that have been really exciting. All right, let me try to share my screen. Great. And we'll just give a, yeah, maybe I will stop my video so that we can sort of just look at the screen and in a few minutes kind of quickly run through some of the work that is highlighted at the Lyman Allyn. So, you know, Kenny, you did a wonderful job really kind of parsing out the details of this photographic sort of standing self-portrait in front of two painted portraits. And we have this on our kind of entry wall to the exhibition. And I love walking visitors through the details and the stories behind this beautiful portrait photograph. And it's a wonderful kind of lead in to some of the other material. So our exhibition also includes a kind of a wide range of material, but with a focus as well on Hendricks's photographic output. So we have 34 works of art on view, and of those, 24 are photographs. So it's been it's exciting to build on the material that you introduced and culled and sort of put out, you know, in an exhibition format to the world, and to sort of pick up and continue that conversation in our exhibition, which focuses on place, community, and teaching in Hendricks's career in Connecticut. So here is an installation view of our largest gallery, the McKee Gallery. And we have, this is 3 of the 4 large-scale painted portraits that we have on view. And this work is the work that Hendricks is best known for. So it's wonderful to be able to include some examples to see in person, you know, the powerful impact of these life-size portraits. And these are all works. The goal, you know, the sort of overarching theme of our exhibition is, you know, to have work that either represents New London sitters, or is work that, you know, was created in Hendricks's New London studio, and sort of speaks to these issues of kind of place and community in one, or teaching in one way or another. And because we don't have a ton of time, we'll just kind of go fairly quickly through a few of these. And I think teaching is an important element of kind of thinking about Hendricks's use of a wide range of media and genres. And, you know, as we saw in the Roses exhibition, you know, his prolific breadth and the range of his interests as an artist is astounding. And I think it's been important to share that breadth in the story that we tell. So on the left, it's hard to see in this sort of distant view, but we have 2 kind of focused watercolor studies. On the left, a still life of a plum, and then a landscape of Groton, New London, the electric boat, General Dynamics corporation building where submarines are built out of New London. And then 2 amazing oval landscapes of Jamaica that Hendricks would paint during his winter breaks from teaching at Connecticut College. So yes, to sort of back up and explain, you know, the length of time, it was really much of his mature career was spent living in New London and teaching studio art at Connecticut College. Hendricks, after graduating and receiving his combined Bachelor of Arts and MFA from Yale University School of Art in 1972, was hired immediately, offered a teaching job position at Connecticut College. So leaving New Haven, shifts to New London, and had been a presence and a part of the community of New London ever since. So he taught at Connecticut College from 1972 until he retired in 2010, and then lived in New London until he passed away in 2017. So it's a remarkable legacy to have Barkley Hendricks in New London, creating, work for which he becomes, nationally, internationally renowned in the span of time. And it's been really exciting to reflect on that legacy, and to think about his art and kind of keep place and community and teaching sort of at the center of the stories that we're telling. Just to kind of finish out this image, there is a nice case that we have with some ephemera in it that sort of reflects some of his faculty exhibitions that were held at Connecticut College over time, a solo show, group shows, and some involvement that he had with the local art scene and the Hygienic Art Gallery in New London. He was a major part of the kind of founding and was a continuous participant in the exhibitions that were held there at the Hygienic over the course of his life. Then we have two adjacent galleries that show our photographs. And these focus on Connecticut College. Teaching at Connecticut College is one grouping. And you can see there's a few images that are images from the rows that we show again at the Lyman Allyn, but with focus on kind of some of the particular stories behind them. So this really beautiful photograph that Gannit showed several times is such a wonderful one. And I love, did a little bit of digging into this to think about the story that is behind this photograph. So from 1948 until 1977, Connecticut College hosted the prestigious American Dance Festival. This annual summer event attracted contemporary dance luminaries who premiered and performed important pieces. This photo depicts visiting dancers Ralph Farrington and Alvin McDuffie, who both had distinguished careers as dancers, choreographers, and instructors. Farrington was later a visiting instructor with the festival, while McDuffie's life and career were tragically cut short by AIDS in 1987. Hendricks depicted many members of the LGBTQ community with nuance and respect. In this photograph, Ralph gazes at Alvin, who looks out at the viewer with a focused intensity. Hendricks used a different full-length photograph of this pair to compose a large, painted double portrait, but this image captures a dynamism in its constellation of gazes. So this is one that I really love, and it's just, it grips you as you walk by. So for this exhibition, we were really grateful to the Artist's Estate, to Susan Hendricks and David Katzenstein, a former student of Hendricks's and a very gifted photographer in his own right, who is overseeing the work on the Barkley Hendricks Photographic Archive. And a lot of this work that Gannit, I think you were probably part of also, happened after Hendricks's death and has been the goal of kind of organizing and excavating and really kind of taking stock of all of the portraits, all of the photographs rather, that Hendricks took over the course of his career as a prolific photographer. So this is a sort of just a scene outdoors at Connecticut College of maybe a reception, some sort of event, with a lot of kind of complex possibilities in terms of narrative. That is just a really dynamic one. Here is another we printed 10 new photographs from this archive focused on New London stories. So here is one, a young woman, this focus on the feet and the shoes. She's reclining at the edge of Connecticut College's Temple Green, possibly right outside of the art building, the Cummings Art Building. We printed this photo on the left of a Connecticut College student, Lynn Jenkins, who posed for Hendricks. There are several other photographs that document a sitting in his studio that Hendricks used to create this beautiful portrait that's in the collection of the Museum of Modern Art in New York. So it's nice to have that story to be able to tell. This photograph is another one that we printed for the show. This is a great image that shows teaching and Hendricks's use of live figure models in the classroom. And this model is one he favored, a young man named Niall, who he painted a portrait of wearing SpongeBob boxer shorts. But here you can see this great sort of moment where he's gripping a basketball. And this classroom at Connecticut College, you know, these tables and chairs are still there. And we imagine, you know, maybe students are in the background, that this is documenting a pose so that, you know, the model comes back next week and maybe, you know, sort of picks up and the students continue to work on a project with Hendricks directing as our professor. And I think it's interesting to think about this image of vendetta also within this academic tradition of working from live nude models. Hendricks did a painted portrait of Vendetta with clothing on, but I think it's interesting, you know, just to sort of have several versions of her pose, you know, here so that he can see and become acquainted with her musculature, her bone structure, the shape of her body beneath clothes, as he's preparing to paint a portrait of her. Here's another image photograph of a student drawing. I love how Hendricks sort of has given the student privacy. He's, you know, not intruding on her space, but standing back, we just see, you know, the edge of her foot and a little bit of the paper, you know, on which she is sketching this sculpture in a museum setting. We have a group of photographs that show people and places around New London. A lot of just stylish individuals sort of captured out, you know, while Hendricks is walking the streets of New London or going about his daily business. He would have a camera with him at almost all times. People have talked about this, you know, kind of ready to capture a variety of images in the moment. This image, this sort of joyful, very stylish group of women standing on Bank Street in New London. With one of my student interns, we walked and tried to kind of recreate and capture images of some of the places that are depicted in these photographs. So here you can see these women stand in front of the Customs House in New London, you know, this historic building. So here's the Custom House, which is currently is a museum, a maritime museum. Then also, this is an image I love, a view of Harkness Memorial State Park in Waterford, this great group scene, this triad of reclining figures all wearing stripes. And I love this image, connects to the Renaissance pastoral tradition. You know, and you think of artists that Hendricks was deeply familiar with, you know, the work of Titian, Giorgione, Manet, you know, this kind of very old tradition of depicting men and women interacting out in nature. as shepherds and shepherdesses or bathers. And here we see, these well-dressed, sort of sharp, happy people of color out in this park enjoying a summer day. And just the sort of beauty of the composition in this scene too. The angles of their arms and bodies together is really remarkable. This is a really beautiful photograph. This depicts the U.S. Coast Guard Academy Cadet Band. And the Coast Guard Academy is located across Route 32 from Connecticut College and from the Lyman Allyn Art Museum. And I imagine, perhaps Hendricks could hear them practicing from, as he was coming out of the art building one day and walks across the street to capture this amazing scene in a puddle, of the reflection of these figures. It's just very striking. Here is another of the group that we printed, a little boy with a, sort of pop gun at Sailfest, this sort of annual summer festival that happens in New London. Just the joy and the beauty of this young child. But I think, seeing it through the eyes of the current moment, thinking about young Black boys with guns, toy guns, and how, police brutality and, many instances where things have not gone well, gives this added weight. But it's really a very interesting image. Other single figures, that I think could be potential painted portraits. There are many of them, just very striking figures. I know we are very short on time, so I will sort of quickly go through, a few installation shots. We were pleased to be able to showcase one of these boombox images that was at the Rose, this image on the left, I think, with the, two other, a new boombox image that we had printed in this great large scale photograph of Ray Charles in concert at the Harkness sort of summer series. It is just a very beautiful, striking image. And these portraits of musicians live in concert were a theme and an interest of Hendricks, that he loved having these personal encounters and being able to capture the essence or the sort of magic of music in this moment. So this is one we chose in part because the background is a very recognizable street in New London, Huntington Street, that looks very much the same today. You can see the sort of house on the left here with these pillars is the same, and this church. It's a very recognizable view. And these three young men are standing actually in a storefront very close to Hendricks' studio on State Street. And here is that space. And I think another of the images from the Rose exhibition had a figure in the same spot as well. So I think, and we were, I was so affected, by the kind of the power of seeing these photographs, Gannit, in your exhibition, and they were available from the gallery to lend to us. And these are all scenes within Connecticut. So we had borrowed them and have these on view, showing how Hendricks uses photography to document injustice and racism, inviting viewers to think about the charged dynamics of these moments he's observed and sort of sought out, and to reflect on how this is his community. It's not just kind of images of fashion and beauty and sort of music, that this darker side is part of our community as well. So I know we don't have much, just a few moments to have a little bit more conversation. And I will maybe stop sharing. And maybe we can have a little bit of Q&A. Then maybe you and I could talk a little, or we could open it up to questions. I know we were planning to only have about 10 more minutes. I apologize. I wondered if you had any thoughts or...
Yeah, I looked at the Q&A and they were mostly comments by people who were very interested in the shows. So we're really thankful for that. And some people who were connecting with us. So I responded to most of them while you were talking, but also was fascinated by your presentation. And I think that what I wanted to say is the fact that this is the tip of the iceberg. Barkley Hendricks should be a household name. He was a genius as an artist, not just, I mean, looking at his drawings, his works on paper, his landscapes from Jamaica, his insights, his, I love the paintings, but then the photographs and some of the ones that you showed. And I love the way you took some of the ones that we had and you kind of located the place and rephotographed it. But what you and I did, absolutely an honor and a labor of love, and we just scratched the surface. There is so much more to this artist's work and legacy and brilliance. And I actually wanted to do a huge retrospective of all of it together, and maybe we can partner and do that. I think that, yeah, we just scratched the surface. There's so much more. I'm very happy to say that the Frick collection is going to have a big Barkley Hendricks exhibition in New York. And the curator came to visit our show and look at what we did. They're not going to show photography, but they're going to show paintings. But what she said was she was very moved by the catalog and our narration of his relationship with Renaissance, Baroque, and European art, for example. And she was thinking about the Fricks and the art that they collected when they were assembling the collection. And she said if they were alive today, they would be collecting Barkley Hendricks. And that was one of the reasons for having this big show in New York on Madison Avenue in the Breuer Building. The other thing that I was thinking was that, well, I was thinking a lot of things. Maybe you want to respond to that.
Yeah, no, it's great, I think, to mention, this upcoming exhibition, which will be a really important one. And, thinking a little bit, and I think you talked about this a bit already, that the importance, but also, not the challenge, but, how Barkley Hendricks as an artist has been described as, that there are 3 or 4 different artists named Barkley Hendricks, that were producing very different bodies of work. And it was exciting for me to think about and to sort of notice some interest and certain threads that go between those bodies of work. But I think he was so prolific and so creative in a range of different materials and modes that it's hard to kind of pin down. And I know, we're grateful and really I think I felt it was important also to show that breadth, the drawings, the photographs, the paintings.
Yeah.
But, I think there's a kind of identity confusion a little bit, that many people are most familiar with the portrait paintings, and some of the other material. It takes time, I think, and as you say, we're just scratching the surface for people to become familiar with these other bodies of work.
Yeah.
And I loved, you had, such a great range of the television pieces, and it made me really think. We have one large photograph of the television in the Dutch Tavern, a sort of historic bar tavern in New London. But just thinking about him as really such a key artist in comparison to this other group of artists known as the pictures generation. Some artists who showed together, but were defined by kind of their age, sort of baby boomer status, and the way that they matured in a moment when the television was kind of new and this huge part of American, sort of conveying media and this shared media experience that artists, sort of grew up with. People like Cindy Sherman, Nan Golden, Richard Prince, have been called the pictures generation. And I thought, wow, Barkley Hendricks, he's all of this work is so rich, and there's so much depth to it. But because he's best known for doing all these other things, I feel like his work, I don't know that it's been considered sort of within those other sort of group of artists, with similar.
Right.
And so I feel like there's so many different ways to categorize.
Well, I see it quite differently. Very interesting what you're saying. So first of all, I don't see it as a split. I think that museums split the different genres because you take care of works on paper differently than you care for oils, and so those categories. I feel like my sense is, working with the material, that there's a unity there, there's a cohesiveness there, and the overarching factor that unites all the oeuvre, the entire oeuvre, is Barkley Hendricks' vision and his way of seeing, and which is so distinct. And I felt that it was a gift for us to be able to see through his eyes and to share that with the audience. As for, both Richard Prince and Cindy Sherman, they stage themselves as certain things. Now, he also has performative self-portraits, but I feel there's a distinction. I think I'm thinking of Cindy Sherman, she actually disguises herself, and he actually uses props to reveal aspects of himself. Even when he covers himself, there's always something that tells us something about an inner facet or a conflict within himself. But I feel like he's been overlooked as the grandfather of all these young artists, especially artists of color, who are painting figurative portraits. Jordan Castile and Amy Sherald and others. I mean, they try to give visibility to overlooked Black folks. And he did that like way before. So I feel like his place in history, I concur with you that his place in history still needs to be marked after we pull together his amazing creative power. And I think that there was also something when he came of age, when he was studying in Yale. Abstract art and not just abstraction, but conceptual art, those were the things that were considered important. And he studied painting, but didn't connect with the painting department. That's why he went to study photography. And but at the time there were hierarchies, still are in some places, where photography was considered less than oil on canvas or acrylic on canvas. So I think some of these distinctions muddied the water and didn't allow us to also when these things became available, when, Susan found things after his death, we all knew he took photographs. There's rarely a photograph of him without a camera around his neck. But, and we know when he got the first camera, etc., and how he went around and photographed. But he kind of didn't show it as much as he showed, or maybe he considered it less than the painting, or maybe society around him considered it less. But I'm just thrilled that the Jack Shaman Gallery had a wonderful show, that you still have this amazing exhibition where we can look at all the things. And one other form of creativity that they did show at the gallery, but I wasn't given the privilege of showing, were the notebooks. Amazing notebooks. So there's still a lot more work to do, But thanks for the opportunity to be in conversation with you.
Thank you. This was really remarkable and wonderful, I think, for folks, who may have missed or who were there for the Rose Museum's exhibition, to kind of think about it and see this work again, and to see different things that aren't in our show, and to just think about kind of this evolving work and material that is being made available to the public. And I'm very excited to see the portraits that will be on view at the Frick in late September. And I hope, that will help really make his name, his work known to a much wider audience, and kind of help really cement his role in shaping particularly Black portraiture, and his contributions to American art more broadly. I don't know, I think we're probably out of time. I don't know if there are
no questions, but there is something interesting in the chat that Allyn put in, and we invite people to participate in the Lyman Allyn's response to the show via, so you see the links there. I guess we want to thank every single person for joining us. Okay, we are getting a lot of remarks that people enjoyed our program, Tanya. So thank you for making it possible and initiating this. And thank you, everyone. And please come and see our museums.
Yes. Thank you so much. And lots to think about. We appreciate it. All right, take care. Thank you again. Thank you so much, Gannit.
Thank you, Tanya.